Every day in Northwest Missouri, there are women navigating one of the hardest things a person can go through. And somewhere in that system, there's a person whose entire job it is to make sure they don't have to do it alone. Today on the 3994 podcast, we're talking to Siobhan Jackson, victim advocate for the Buchanan County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. Before we get started today, I want to take just a moment to say this episode touches on domestic violence and some of the realities that survivors face. If that's something close to your heart right now, I hope that this conversation brings you some comfort and maybe some clarity about the help that exists right now here in our community. And if you or someone you know needs support, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24 hours a day. That number is 1-800-799-7233. And their website is thehotline.org. All right, let's get into it. Siobhan, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So many questions. And one of your questions for me is, why now? What was it that spurred you for me to reach out?
Yes. What's going on?
I was at the YW and someone had spoke at an event and said your name again. And it was the second time in 2 weeks that I had heard your name. And I remembered, oh yeah, I used to call her and ask her about this case and this case. And she was the go-to, and you're still the go-to. So tell me a little bit about your role in Buchanan County.
So really, I have to go back into the beginning of my career. So I was in law enforcement for 7 years when I first started out, and then took a little break and raised a child, went on the mission field, came back, and then started working as a victim advocate at the YWCA. And I primarily worked with sexual assault victims. And I finished school, so I do everything backwards a little bit. So I finally finished school, and I stayed in that role, and then I went and helped develop that to where, or not, I would say where it is. We just helped build that. Then I went over to the courthouse to work and kind of develop a program with the ex parte behemoth that is over there. So I was kind of embedded at the courthouse. I had an office over in the prosecutor's office. At the time, Dwight Scroggins was the prosecutor, and he said, "Hey, I've got a space. I want you in it." So then I was there for like a year and a half, and then I was offered a job at the prosecutor's office as a victim advocate. So I left one and went to the other. So I primarily only work with domestic violence victims. So I've had the experience of doing it as a law enforcement officer and seeing it there, and then transition over at the Y in a community-based advocacy. And then I went over to the prosecutors, and I'm systems-based. So it's a little different, but I'm more in there on the legal side now. So it's different, but the same.
A lot of us knew your dad,
Yes.
Jim Connors.
Yes.
And he was really instrumental and involved in, I hate to say politics, it really wasn't politics, but a little bit. Tell us about him and growing up with a dad who you saw be that public servant.
Oh, it's everything. Like ever since I've known him, he's in the public eye. When he worked for KQ2 as the weatherman, and then he coined sunshine to you, and it was always public service with him. And so then he was on the city council for a little while, and I remember going in the parades down the Apple Blossom Parade for, waving everybody with how you do. And then from the city council, that's when he kind of did ride-alongs and learned more about the police. And then he wanted to be a police officer. Well, he was, at the time, you couldn't be a police officer if you were over 35. So he was turning 35 pretty quick. So he had to get in there. So he was older when he started. So I was like 8 or 9 at the time. So I've always just seen him in one way or the other serving the community. So, and then when he finally retired, after 33 years, he still was involved. He's then went into real estate because he can't quit people.
He couldn't.
So yeah, it's always been there.
Tell us about growing up. Did you grow up in St. Joe?
I grew up in St. Joe, yes, straight behind the highway patrol. So I always say if that tower fell, it'd fall on our house. So, I tell people I woke up hearing sirens and gunshots because they had an outdoor range at the time at the highway patrol. So, it was just like a normal thing, but it was just a normal growing up thing. And then at a certain layer, your dad is well known to everybody. So we always had media at our house. I remember him, he's having a pool party or we're having a party or something or it's whatever day. Oh, and the media needs some comment because he was the public information officer at the time. And he'd go out and just put his police shirt on and say, just get me from the waist up. It was just that relationship.
Swim trunks on the bottom.
Yep, it would be in his flip flops. And then he'd be, giving his official statement. Or we'd be fielding calls from reporters. I need to speak to your dad.
Mhm.
He's not here. And we knew the drill, call this person or here's how to get a hold of him. But it's like we always were running his interference for him a little bit. But it was normal, but it was just our normal, I guess.
Mhm. What's interesting about you is how calm you are always. And I imagine that when the gunfire is going off and you're hearing sirens, even as a kid, was there always a calm to you and always
No.
like that steady?
This is a little unknown fact, I guess it's not going to be unknown now, is up until about 5, I don't know, 6, 7, I was terrified of sirens. And there's a fire station not too far from me. And then we're always surrounded by sirens, but I think it might have been a suggestion by a sibling that they were coming to get me that made me afraid of them. Not naming names. But then I got over it obviously, because then I went into a field where I'm around, I was around sirens all the time, and I'm still now it's not anything. But I thought it was ironic that, yeah, I was afraid of them. I just always thought they were coming to get me for some reason, or it was always connected to something really bad, and I was like, no, it's fine.
Yeah, it's part of life.
Yeah, it is. It is part of life.
So, what drew you to get involved with domestic violence victims?
Well, I always have to tell this story about my bestest friend from like growing up. We're at each other's house since 6 years old. And she had gotten into a relationship. And I'm saying this in full transparency. She knows I tell this story and she's fine with it. So it's part of her story too. So I was 20 and I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, and she was saying, hey, we're going to go out to California, because at the time she was living in California. And she'd started dating this guy, and we knew about him, whatever. But so I simply called and I said, hey, our friend is coming out there. Just give me a call back. I just left a message. So I got a phone call back, but I didn't hear, I said hello, but I didn't hear anything. I just heard screaming, yelling. And then I hear, and I have to do it, that. And I'm yelling on the phone, and I'm like, for her. And obviously they're not listening. So I wake my parents up, because I'm still living with my parents, because I'm like, they'll know what to do. So my dad gets on the phone. He obviously knows what's going on, and he's yelling. And then my mom gets on the phone until it gets ripped out of the wall. And at the time, I knew her address. So my dad got a hold of the police department in California, and we were contacting her parents and the whole 9 yards. And then she calls me back 20 minutes later, and she's like, hey, what's going on? Like, nothing happened. And I had a few words like, I know what's going on. I know what happened. That started a 2-year ordeal between us, because she stayed with him, and she was, all the normal things you see. And he started isolating her from me, because it would be like every other call I'd get, it was, he's horrible. And then it was, you're just trying to break us up, and you're just trying to destroy us, and everything's fine. And then it was just silence. Like, she didn't contact me anymore. And then like 2 years later, she calls me out of the blue, and she said, I just want to let you know that my dad and grandpa are on their way out here to pick me. And by this time they were married, had a daughter, are coming to pick us up. You were right. And I just said, I never wanted to be right. This isn't about I'm right. I just want you to be okay. I just wanted you to be alive. And so it just taught me right then. I just always had a heart for it. And I think maybe I've been thinking about it for a long time. It's like, what is that heart? And I think it was that understanding what the family or friends feel like when they're watching this happen, and what do you do? And you kind of have to learn through life and cultivate that. It's not just a blanket easy answer. And so I think it's this, I tell people, never leave the truth. because they'll come back to what's true. It's like they will. It's like, and so at a certain point, it's like, yeah, she said you were right, but it wasn't about me being right. It's like, I just know what was true. And so it's just always just being that encourager for even all the periphery people who are watching this happen and they feel like they can't do anything. Of course, helping the victim through that too, because, with her, there were a lot of, even to this day, there's residual effects. She's in a great marriage now, but, everybody has their own life and own way. And I don't have any control over what happens, like what decisions you make. I have nothing, I can't control that. Only you can. But I can be an encourager and just tell you the truth.
What control do you have over the situations that you encounter? All of Northwest Missouri turns to you. It's not just the folks in Buchanan County.
It feels like that.
Andrew, Nottoway, people know to contact you. What control do you have over a situation when a victim does reach out?
So really what control is kind of misleading a little bit. What I can do is say, let me give you some options. Let me tell you what can happen. So, and so there's a lot of different avenues. Everybody's story and everybody's situation is different. So there's not a blanket answer I could ever give someone. There's just not, because there's 8 billion different stories in the world and 8 billion different attitudes and belief systems and the whole thing. So how do I give a blanket answer to that? You can't. I just have to listen to your story. But I will say this. When I talk to a victim and she's telling the story, a lot of times I'll say, and I'm going to say he, because generally it's a male on female.
Percentage-wise,
Yes,
77% of those who commit domestic violence are male.
Yes, are male, but I see a lot of it the other way too. It's just now it's starting to get reported more. So I could see at some point those numbers will be a little different. But here's what I'll tell them. I'll usually fill in the blank. It's usually the same song. It's always the same song. It's just a different singer. And so when I say that to him, it's like, what you're going through and experiencing, you're not alone in. And that's what they try to make you feel like you're alone, like you're the problem. You're the only one who can make me stop, which is a lie. You know, you're not, or you're special because nobody else is having this happen to them. And I always say, well, you're not special. You are absolutely perfectly special, but in that you really aren't special. I see this all the time. So a lot of times when I can unlock that door to let them know, you're not alone. What he's doing is common. Like I can tell you everything he's doing because I don't even know him. You haven't told me anything and I know exactly what he's doing. And so when I can kind of break through that, then we can kind of formulate a way out or tell them some stuff they can do. The other thing I've done is cultivated relationships over the years. So there's a trust thing there. I've been doing this for almost 14 years in this position and know a lot of people in the business, if you will.
The system.
So there's an air of like, trust there. It's like if I reach out, I'm not just trying to say, I'm really trying to help. It's like we cultivate those relationships. So I think that's one of the reasons why is probably longevity is I've been around long enough to know that I know people. So I can connect you to people. And so when I first started, I didn't have that. I probably got ignored more than anything. To be honest, it's like, there she goes, right in her mouth again. But now it's different because it's like, no, we all work together. We've, time does that.
They probably know too that when you call, it's you're not joking around.
No, I'm not in it, and I know people, and I don't say that because I'm gonna try to get them to do something they wouldn't normally do. But there's probably like, oh, she knows what she's talking about. And so does that translate everywhere? No. I have to find the right people to make me make the call. So they might not listen to me, but they might listen to you. And so, I do that a lot. I don't know it's always well received, but I do that. I do that a lot because I'm like, they're not going to listen to me. But I also want to impart to the victim I'm working with, I need to empower you because you have to advocate for yourself. So I'm going to tell you some keywords to say. So it's always kind of this push behind them. It's like, you've got to do some of this work. I can do a lot. But at some point, I can't be in every single thing. I can't be along the way in every single time. And it's teaching other people how to do it. I can only be somewhere for this amount of time. It's like I need help. So I'm always trying to teach or cultivate other people who will step in and say, okay, let me do this. And that's why I like relationship with the YWCA is like, I need them to fill in these spaces because I can't.
Great question. Do we need 2 or more of you?
Well, yes. I
And
would
why?
love that. Because there's way more, like, I don't appeal to everybody. Like, there is no one person who everybody is fine with. And that's, it's like, I might not be the one you connect with, but this one you might, and that's great.
But even from a numbers perspective, I was reading some reports that you sent. The statistics are alarming. What is it like in our area? Why would we need 2 of you? Do we need?
Well, so like my whole caseload in our prosecutor's office is domestic violence. And we have another advocate in the office who does everything else. So you're talking, when I say everything else, it's like assaults, child sexual assault, because I also do sexual assault cases too. So I do both of them. But she does child abuse, child sexual assault, murders, all of those big, heavy cases. We have one other person who handles those. And I handle domestic violence. And then and we've now expanded into elder abuse things and just bringing that awareness. So I stay busy. How can I stay busy with that one caseload? And so I'm also helping people who are coming in with ex parte issues. So it may not even ever have a criminal
Tell
case.
us what that means.
So, an ex parte is a protection order. Basically, we'd say protection order. Ex parte means like temporary until it turns into a full order. So you're just coming in and looking for a civil remedy for this. So you're asking the court to say, hey, this person is abusing me, harassing me, stalking me, all these things. So you're asking for a civil remedy. So the amount of evidence you need for that is going to be lower than a criminal case. So a lot of times, a lot of cases start there because you go into something and it's maybe not quite yet.
He said, she said, not enough evidence.
Well, there's a hard and fast rule in our office that we are not allowed to say it's a he said, she said. There is evidence to say who it is. And in domestic violence, you have to look at it as it isn't about one event, it's about everything. So we go through the whole history. So what we find is, let's say you say, well, tonight he just pushed me and screamed at me and threw something at me. That doesn't seem that minor. Except 3 days ago, he strangled her. There's bruises everywhere. He smacks her. But because no marks were left or necessarily, we don't, it's not a big deal, but something about tonight was a big deal or somebody witnessed it, and then the police get called. So you have to go through the whole history. You don't just look at this one event. It's like, I want to know everything that happened.
You work so hard, Siobhan, like so hard with some of these women in these cases. And I have to ask, a lot of us would say, why do they go back? That has to be so frustrating for you.
It can I can say yes on the surface, it's frustrating, but not for the reasons why you would think. Because I have to look at my own relationship. I have to break it down, and I have other people break it down. It's like, this is my statistic. That's probably rooted somewhere in some study. Please find it. But it's my statistic. 96%, and I'll make a weird number, 96% of the people who get assaulted the first time don't leave. And when I hear them say, oh no, if he hit me one time, I'm gone. I'm like, no, you're not. Because it doesn't work that way. Because you go into a relationship, there's this tie. Like you have this emotional tie.
And maybe
to
you have
someone.
children.
And children, it starts off like way down here, so it's like, and then children makes it even more complex. So you're saying that first assault is usually explained away, having a bad day, it was things, emotions got crazy, this happens. So when you see the statistics, it says it takes 7 times for someone who's attempted to leave. They leave 7 times before they finally do it. Or I read another statistic where it says there are 33 different acts of violence towards the victim before the police are called one time. So then they're called that one time, and then what happens, usually if I have you for the first time, may or may not get charges, and that can be frustrating for everybody. But sometimes the victim's like, hey, I think it was a bad day. We're going to get it fixed. I've seen a lot of them do. They adjust and they get fixed, or whatever issues are going on. Jobs, um, school, stress, circumstances, things just got heated. Okay. When we watch it and I say, just promise me if something happens, you're going to call. Yeah. Because what I want him to do is to know I'm not mad at him. I'm not mad. I understand what's going on. I want to be a resource so you can come back and say, I need help. I need this. I need that. Because my goal is for them to be alive, for them to live. It's like, this is a process. This isn't one and done. I mean, it's a process.
Don't you think a lot of people would say, oh, this is a low income problem?
Absolutely not. Yes, they would say that, but it is absolutely not. Mm-mm. It's like if anybody could appreciate the large range of cases that I've read just in what I do, and it doesn't matter, money can actually make things way worse, and people will stay in there because there's status, there's embarrassment, there's things going on. They don't want their dirty laundry out in the public. It can be worse than someone who doesn't have very many resources. For people who have resources, there's I think a lot more family pressure to not say anything, do things. So, yeah, it can be way worse and a lot more avenues to abuse.
What does your office do for victims? And if someone is being abused, what is the first step that they should take?
So our office, like by the time we get a case, law enforcement will have been involved. So that first line is when law enforcement enters into it, that they have to conduct their investigation and they're trained. And we're always looking at more training. Every entity needs more training, but they're trained on what to look for. And so say they make an arrest, or there isn't an arrest made right there for whatever reason because he's gone, but we get the case at some point. So if they've been arrested, they're in custody for a 24-hour investigation. A detective is doing some things on that end. When we get the case, then I will look at it, read through it, and then I'm calling. And I call in and just kind of see where the victim's at, hear them out, and explain to them, because I hear this a lot. They just need help. What do they need help for? Yeah, what do they need help with? Drugs, alcohol, anger management. Those are my top 3.
And they're talking about their abuser.
Mm-hmm. They just need help. And it's like, okay, we can, they need help. Okay, got you. We can help. Well, they don't need to be in jail. That never helps. I go, I don't disagree with that. I'm like, you're right. It doesn't, but right now he needs to be in jail because what he did was illegal. So I can't, it's not my job to talk him in and out of accepting this, but we can throw them into some programs to help them. But I can't do that without them being charged. The other caveat is in Missouri, in the domestic violence law, it's not up to the victim to press charges. It's not up to them. It's up to the prosecutor. So I say that to him is like, I'm going to take that off your shoulders. It is not up to you. So you can't say, you can tell me you don't want charges. We obviously want to hear this. But we're going to walk through all that. But I want you to know at the end of the day, it's ultimately that prosecutor's decision and theirs only. And so you may not like it and this may continue, but there's a reason, like, the charges are staying. And I said, and then there's different ways of, like, we have a domestic violence court. So if they go on probation, they go in and they get treatment. Like, they have to go to batters intervention classes, there's substance abuse stuff. There's things like, we're gonna usher you into that. If they accept it, we can't make them. It's like it's an offer, and a whole lot of people take it, and it actually has worked. But it's like any treatment program, it's only gonna work if you want it to. Can't make somebody change.
That's such a good, not to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
what a good point here. What do we do as a friend or a family member who knows that there's a situation? I mean, empower us. Like, what do we do?
So what I would do in the middle of that is not point out the obvious. And I say this is that person knows full well what this other person is. Um, so the more that I will say, oh, they're terrible, they're that, most likely your loved one's probably going to dig in deeper to protect them, because when I'm saying that about the person they love, you are ultimately saying to them, you failed, you're a failure, you didn't do anything right, you're just kind of reiterating that. So what I say is just, in, I I go kind of go through every back door. I always try to find a back door. So if their hope is that they're going to get better and they're going to do well, then that's what I'm going to say. Oh, I hope he's getting what he needs. I'm going to encourage that, because a lot of times what they find out is it's not healthy, and, they can get away from it. But that's what I'm saying. Every single case is different, and how and where you're going to find them. I don't know where the break is going to be in my relationship with them. It could be that first call. It could be the ninth time I've called the person and they're like, I know you're getting tired of talking to me. No, I'm not. I just want you to be okay. But as far as families goes, like, don't leave the truth, but don't pressure them either, because you're going to run them straight back into it more than you think, because they're wired to protect that person
Yeah,
at
it's
all
someone
costs.
that ultimately they love.
Yeah.
Who are the champions in our community besides, of course, yourself?
Well, okay, I always have to go back to Jean Brown. When I worked at the YWCA and she ran it, like, she was definitely a teacher of being a servant leader. It's like she wouldn't ask you to do anything that she wouldn't do. And so it's always, you go above and beyond for people. People are important, and then it's just probably like growing up on doing missions and just understanding just how important people are more than me and how I feel and think. Because trust me, sometimes it's exhausting. Um, doing this every day. But then I have to shout out Christina Zeit, which is one of our prosecutors, because she just taught me so much about how to work with these cases and just how to approach people with firmness, but love. It's like I'm gonna do what's right. I'm gonna do, what's true. I know that it's always being a pole and not, and being a firm wall. It's like, you're not gonna knock us down, because we've got to stop this cycle somewhere. And this is just one little part of it. And we can't pretend we know the answer, but we can certainly be like something that they can't just keep running away from and hiding and trying to protect and fix, if that makes sense. So I don't know.
YW is doing a lot of great work. Who else, organization wise, has really stepped up? I'm sure we could use others.
Well, every agency has some part of it. So, you're talking about InnerServe, who's working with so many people. Any social agency that's working with people, they obviously have that heart to do it. So they're seeing these situations, and everybody's working within it. When you get into the legal part of it, that's just one little part of it. And it seems major because nobody wants it exposes a lot more when you get into the legal part. Because now I can get on CaseNet and I can read a probable cause statement. Now all my dirty laundry's out there. And then social media has its way, and everybody has a judgment, and they don't, it just makes it very tangled, right? But every other social service agency, United Way, is doing great things to address a lot of issues. Our city really does a good job, to be honest. If you travel the state and you see how people work together, it's like our city and county does a lot of good things. So it's like we have a lot to be proud of.
And a lot of people don't know that. I mean,
No.
it's behind closed doors. It's really an isolated team. And part of that team, I don't know if this is an election year, but Kate Schaefer, one of my friends, I have the utmost respect for what she has done in her past for children. Talk to me a little bit about that person as a team member.
Well, she was instrumental even in our office in getting the domestic violence court program in place. And so she's really pioneered a lot. 'Cause obviously, if you know her, she's very passionate about everything. But she's very well versed and trained in domestic violence issues, and then the child cases that she does, the rape cases that she did, and now, she's serving as a judge, so she's well versed in it. She understands, the dynamics in play, and she works with people so well. So, now I kind of work with her in a different avenue, but I always know that when she has a case in front of her, she's going to be fair and she's going to understand the dynamics. But she's gonna apply the law correctly and fairly, but she's been a pioneer in it. So she would be one of those heroes too, where it's like, yeah, you wanna work with people who get it, who understand it, and have that passion for it and wanna make changes. We've worked on protocols and a sexual assault, response protocol, and Buchanan County has, and we're, working on the elder abuse MDT. I know that we're trying to maybe throw in a mental health court on what Dream is a family justice center. That would be awesome for Buchanan County, and it flows into surrounding counties because I work with people in a lot of Northwest Missouri. I get a lot of calls. But
How can we support your office and that team and what you're doing? Because it seems like it is so detached from maybe just all of us living in Andrew County. Like, how can we support what you guys are doing?
well, just know, like, what I do in Buchanan County, I can help in Andrew County. I help answer stuff in Holt County. I with Nottaway County, I've been up around there, and all the counties. Like, we all work with each other, but I think it's really wanting to know more, like, about the dynamics of domestic violence. Like, to answer your question, like, what do we do? It's like you have to really understand the dynamics, and so you understand what you're seeing. And I think that
And
uh,
maybe the need for a family justice
this
center.
family justice center would be awesome.
So, see, when you say that, I think, okay, do we need to put together a fundraiser? What do we need to do? How can we as a community support what the needs are in Northwest Missouri?
You have to you educate yourself about why it's important, and then even in your own community. So I know one of the things is we have a lot of rural communities. But I would say I'm gonna back up the train here before we go into a family justice center, which would be super
The
awesome.
dream.
Like, that's the ultimate. You have to kind of look at how your county is doing things. How is it responding? How's law enforcement responding? Let's start there, because they're the first people that show up on a scene. And if you start really sniffing around and asking people, is it adequate? Are our law enforcement in on these rural areas? Because I'm telling you, it hurts. When I see some of it, I'm like, oh my God. When I read a case and what has been done, what hasn't been done, why arrest wasn't made, understand what the law says. It's like, you, as a community and a citizen, you pay for that.
Mhm.
You do deserve to have a response that is correct.
We can keep our law enforcement officers system accountable. We are paying for those resources.
And if you don't ask questions and you don't know, the other thing is too, what we've noticed in Buchanan County, and I'm going to say it's going to leach out into we don't have any media in the courtrooms anymore. So we used to have, and I know you have Marshall's up here, and so he does it here. He used to be down there and do that. But there's nothing, so you don't really know what judges are doing or what the rulings are or what the trends are that you're seeing. You know, we do, but I can't necessarily yell about it because
I mean,
of
I
my
have called your
position.
office. I am known to call your
Yes.
office and say, we have a situation. Everyone knows this is a situation. Why don't we know more? And what can I report? Because there are some where the public needs to be educated.
Yep. But that's the thing is like if you don't go into the courtroom and you have to do it. It's tedious. It's a daily thing. You know, it's not just the sensational cases.
Mm-mm.
You have to be there to see the day in and day out uh rulings and stuff that are happening because there's bond arguments, there's, you know, arguments being made in court and decisions being made that will give you the trend. It isn't about just that one big thing that everybody's.
Or statistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a lot of things like if you talk to Leslie, our other advocate, who we can get fired up pretty easily. And, you know, I'm a little bit more restricted in what I can and can't say. Because of the office, and I have to respect that. And because
And you've said that to me.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, Jody. And I'm like, why? Can I say something? Will you say yes or no? Will you nod on the phone?
I will say if you are looking at me, I'm winking at you. You know, it's like there's
The problem, though, is, and I'm so glad that you're bringing this up, is the accountability that the media brings. And in this area and in other rural areas, we have really lost that accountability.
Yes.
And it's a problem in our culture, in our society. And moving forward, it's going to continue to be a problem.
It is going to be a problem, and also if you don't have that continuity of being in that courtroom and understanding the whole process, there are reasons why certain things are the way they are, and it's legal. It is the way it is, and the justice system can get very slow. That's what it feels, and so when you feel like no justice is happening, but we also have to recognize it is built for the defendant to protect their rights. And I have to go, okay, if you are accused of something, would you not want those same rights afforded to you? Well, yes. I go, because I know, trust me, I know it doesn't feel like you're getting justice. You know, I said, but this is part of the process. And unfortunately, it kind of flips over to the defendant. However, I think it can get out of balance.
If you could call for a change in the state of Missouri, what would it be?
This in reference to domestic violence as a whole, because there's like a two edges, you know, that's a double-edged sword. But so in Missouri, you can have domestic violence perpetrators. They can have weapons. So if you get an ex parte on them that says to take their firearms away, the state of Missouri won't take their firearms away because, you know, that's just kind of in there. But federally, it's a problem, but not state. That's kind of concerning because, you know, what's used a lot.
If an offender has a weapon, a statistic you sent me this week, 700% more likely to have the victim murdered.
To be murdered and to use it as threatening. I mean, I see it all the time. He put a gun to my head. He did this. So they use those weapons to intimidate, but we don't really have a way to take them out. You know, it's like, well, my Second Amendment rights. Well, that doesn't mean that you get to assault or threaten or whatever. And then also think about it. If another statistic is if a domestic violence offender is more likely to assault law enforcement, it is law enforcement going to a domestic violence call that's what gets them killed in the line of duty the most are domestic violence law or cases. So it's like, what are we doing? We're just setting up this.
Is Missouri different than other states? And what can be done? Because I guess layman's knowledge, would they have to have, you know, what charge would they have to get weapons taken away? Do they have to be labeled?
Well, if you're a felon, so if you get a
Right.
felony, you can't have that there.
Other than being labeled a felon, which is of course a process, is there something in place?
No, no. Because like the ex parte used to be one. Like you could
But
get
no
the gun,
longer.
but not anymore. So if the judge ordered in a full order of protection, because you start with that ex parte process, you apply, and if the judge decides, oh, they need a temporary one or an emergency one, it can be granted until the court date, because they have the right to due process where they can go in and either defend themselves, because an order of protection is taking away some freedoms from this person. So they do have a right to say this
But
is
still have a
crap.
right to a weapon.
But there is a box in the protection order that the judge has to mark. They don't always mark them, but if say a gun was used in the commission of whatever they applied for, I've seen them mark that box. You cannot have a weapon. But that's what now they have to say, but Missouri isn't going to take it away. This is when a lot of times family would come in and take all the weapons and get them out of the house so they wouldn't be in there. They don't necessarily do that because there's really no teeth in Missouri. There is federally, but then they have to do it's just frustrating.
Would
It's
you, if
frustrating.
you were to name a new law, would you name it after a female that you've worked with?
I'd probably name after a lot of them. There's a lot of them. So I see guns involved in a lot. And trust me, I shoot. I have no problems with guns. I'm a good shot.
Yeah.
That isn't my point. It's like, but when you introduce violence into it, someone who's prone to violence, and then you just allow them willy-nilly to have that weapon, then there's a problem. So I can't pinpoint one person. I could pinpoint a lot of hundreds of them, so it's just like, it needs to stop. And I know that's a big push. The other one is more safety guards that I would put in to law. So like Tennessee has a great law where they enacted where when they're put on bond or probation, you'll have to check this one out. But they get put on GPS. And then there's an app that the victim has that will tell them where they're at. So and they do that for so long. And I love that because it just gives another layer. We do that a little bit here. We have private probation services has that. They have the GPS. They'll connect it. And we had a really good case. The first one that I connected with them, he's in prison now because he couldn't stop himself from violating that. And we were on him. And but that victim felt so much more empowered and safe because there was like another layer for her of saying, we're watching this person, we're watching him, so we know where he's at. So he's out, but we know what he's doing, and he's excluded from, like, if he violates this and goes into this place or this zone, we have him. And so
Not a lot
guy,
different than sexual predators.
right. Right. It's that for domestic violence, because when we get to the level where the victim, like I am terrified. That's a bad place to be, especially when you've probably had all these other contacts here. They don't feel safe. What they do feel is they know he will kill me because he's told her that so many times. I'm going to kill you. But what they don't believe yet is that we're going to help them. And so that's the bridge.
So rapid fire, that's what we call this round of questioning. One word you hope survivors eventually feel again.
Safe.
What's one small thing that instantly helps someone feel safe?
Acknowledgement that we see them, that we're here.
One thing people misunderstand most about victim advocacy.
We can't fix everything.
Even though you'd like to.
I would love to be able to, but there's not a magic button. But what we can do is this is my best analogy. I'm going to pull you through that wet concrete until it's dry enough for you to walk. And then I'm going to go and pull the next one off. And, so my greatest joy is seeing those people walking down the solid ground. That's the goal.
That's so good. What keeps you grounded after hard days?
My faith. My faith, definitely, and then my family. My husband is the rock star, honestly, because he just nods and just, lets me and then says, I could never do what you do. And I'm like, okay. And then we go off, and it's good. When I go home, it's my sanctuary. I'm home.
Tell us really quick about your tie to Andrew County.
Well, my husband grew up in Andrew County. We're like in the Union Star, Helena area, and graduated from Savannah. So, yeah, he's one of, and my in-laws, his whole family, everybody still lives in Andrew County.
Well, dairy farmers.
Yeah, dairy farmers. It's Ralph and Beulah Jackson had a big old dairy farm. So his dad grew up on that. And then, that land has been in the family for a long time. But there's long history there's a lot of people that are related to each other in those parts, just like Andrew County is anyway.
And he's a good egg.
Yeah, he's a good one. And
keeps you grounded.
he does. He's very patient man. He actually is the one when I first was offered a job, or I wasn't really offered a job. I was encouraged to apply at the YWCA. There was an opening, and it was I will call her out, Carrie Haskey, who's actually from Andrew County. She was working at the time, and she saw me at church at an event, and she's like, "Hey, I think you'd be a good advocate." And so I started volunteering because I was going back to. I knew I was going back to school, or I was back in school, and so then she goes, "Hey, there's an opening because for a part-time." And I did not want to go. I was like, I'm not going to apply this. Actually, he's like, you'd be stupid not to because you were made to do this. That was his big encouragement. And so he really was the one who pushed me because I really did not want to go. I was afraid, and now. But I told Carrie and I told Kim Kempf in my interview, what I'm doing, I would do for free. I said, I would do this for free. And I still would. Sometimes I feel like we do because you don't get into this because you're going to get rich.
There is a rule. There is a rule too, where you can volunteer and fill out an application to be an advocate in some way, shape, or form. Remind me what that is.
So the YWCA have a volunteer program where, and they're always looking for people to come volunteer. I used to run that part of it before, where I'd have volunteers who went to the hospital, and they would volunteer to go to rape calls at the hospital to sit with a victim and help walk them through that. And that's really where I cut my teeth a lot. When I was a police officer, the calls I wanted to go to were always domestic violence calls and the sexual assault calls. And trust me, nobody else. They're like, have at it. And so learning how to build a camaraderie, or, building some rapport with the victim. And I call it cold. I don't know you, but you're trusting me to sit with you during your worst time. It's a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to walk through somebody through their worst time. And that it's almost like a sacred thing because they're trusting you with something. So they have to know that they're safe with you. And so I would take volunteers, and it's we're getting, because there's no way I could do that 24/7. So we had a pretty big volunteer course. So I know they're trying to rebuild that because it's so necessary. It's so necessary to have that. And COVID did a big thing with, it just messed up so much stuff. So I know that they're trying to swing that back. And I think they're trying to do another community advocacy course, which I would tell people, even if you don't want to volunteer or you don't think you can, take it, because you're going to be an advocate at your job. That's what I need, is 1,000 advocates at wherever they work. It's just so if you're encountering somebody you work with, you can help them through that. You can always call, I'll give you pointers, but I'm going to empower you to help that, because why? You already have a connection. You guys you already have a relationship. Now here's how to guide them through all this stuff. And it's stuff. And I tell people all the time, Jody, I say, they're like, I don't know anything about this. I'm so sorry that I'm asking you all these questions. I'm like, well, listen, that means you're normal. Normal people shouldn't know anything about this. Why would a normal person know what an arraignment is or what is this? And they're like, oh, that's true. I said, ask away. I'm like, thank goodness you're normal. Yeah. I'm not a real estate agent. I don't know how to do contracts. I don't know. That's not normal. Why would I know that?
Well, that's why we're doing this podcast today, because a lot of us don't know what an ex parte is, or we don't understand the criminal justice system for victims of domestic violence. But Siobhan, you have been somebody that people rely on. I mean, one of the reasons why I'm having you on today is because there was an Andrew County person who had a situation who relied on you. And when I heard your name, the light bulb went off. And yeah, Siobhan and I used to go to church together. We need to talk. So thank you for all that you do in not only Buchanan County, but Andrew, Holt, Nottoway, all of them.
Well, it's my pleasure. It is a calling. And it's like I'm doing what God's asked me to do. Truthfully, that's my best answer. That's what he's asked me to do. And I'm going to do it. And there's some days that are more joyous than others, and there's long hard days, but it's like I would still do it. It's what I'm supposed to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Siobhan Jackson, thank you again, truly, for the work that you do every single day and for taking the time to share it with our community today. Northwest Missouri is better because you're in it. None of us doubt that. If anything, today's conversation, we want to make sure that it resonated with you, or if it did resonate with you, you know someone who maybe needs to hear it. Share this episode. That's how we take care of each other out here. Local resources were mentioned during this episode. Check out our show notes for links and contact information to those. And before I go, one more thank you to the sponsors who make this podcast possible. We couldn't do this without you. Your support is what keeps these conversations happening. We want to thank E.L. Crawford Construction, the Wallman Family Deluxe Truck Stop, North Central Missouri College, Greater Than Financial, and the Space Between. We're so blessed to be able to be here at the Space Between whenever we want to record podcasts. Gina's Cafe and Catering in Cosby. Go to Gina if you need anything. She's providing even frozen meals that we can make on a weeknight. So good. Scooter's Coffee. Thank you so much for being there for us as a podcast. Start your day the right way and drive through. Pancakes, Pups, and Suds. We love Cassie. Hair by Morgan. Morgan, thank you for sponsoring this episode. This is the 3994 podcast, 39 North, 94 West, right here in this corridor in North Missouri. These episodes are new every week on Thursdays. Get them wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Until next time.